Hello and welcome to Sakura Dev channel. In the previous video, we have integrated the Google provider with Next-Auth in our Next.js application. So the users could easily sign in into our application with their Google account. But when a user signs in into our application, we don't save them in any database. So we can't keep track of our users. We can't tell how many users our application has or right now who is signing into our application. In this video, which is a continuation of the previous video, we are going to go ahead and extend our application and integrate the SupaBase database with the Next-Auth with SupaBase Adapter. So now when a user signs in into our application, we save the user in the SupaBase database, and by doing that, we can keep track of our users. We can tell how many users have signed up in our application and right now who is signing into our application. So without further ado, let's get into it. As a first step, I go to the Next-Auth documentation, and here inside the adapters, I choose the SupaBase. Okay, and then we should install at SupaBase/SupaBase.js and also at auth/SupaBase Adapter. So we copy them and go back to our VS Code. Okay, open up the terminal and here install these two packages. Okay, now I go back to the Next-Auth documentation and here I just copy this adapter section of the example code, go back to VS Code, and after the providers list in our Next-Auth API routes, here I just paste the adapter. And then we need to import the SupaBase from the auth/SupaBase adapter. Okay, and now we have to create these two variables in our env file. Next public SupaBase URL. So let's copy that and go to our env file. Okay, here I'm going to paste it here, then go back to our API routes, then copy this SupaBase service role key. Okay, go back to env file and paste them here. And since we are getting these two variables from the env file, they might be undefined. Okay, so we need to add a double question mark and then add a empty string here and also doing the same with the secret. Okay, so the SupaBase adapter function gets a object as a parameter, and this object has two members, URL and secret, and we are going to get the value of these two properties from the SupaBase dashboard. And before doing that, let's fix the adapter error that we have here. So after the SupaBase adapter function, I'm going to add a as adapter. So that will fix the error of the adapter property in the Next-Auth configuration object. So let's save this and go to the SupaBase dashboard. So I go to the supabase.com and here I'm going to click on the start your project. Okay, I'm going to sign in with my GitHub account. Okay, let's make it a little bigger here. And here I click on the new project and here I choose the organization. I choose the default one. Okay, I need to add the project name. So I'm going to say Sakura Dev SupaBase Adapter. Okay, and then we need to add a database password. So here I'm going to click on the suggest password. Okay, and just click on the create new project. And there we go. Here we have a project URL and also a service role key. Okay, so if you don't see this page, you can go to the project setting and here you can click on the API section and now you can see your project URL and also service role key. Okay, so I copy the project URL, but before doing that, I'll mention here that you should not reveal your project URL, your project API key, and also service role secret key. Okay, so here I copy the project URL and go back to our VS Code and the env file and paste the SupaBase project URL in the next public SupaBase URL. Okay, and then go back to our SupaBase dashboard and click on the reveal service role secret and then copy the secret key. Okay, go back to our env file and paste that in the SupaBase service role key. Okay, so let's save this and we need to go back to the SupaBase dashboard and here I click on the SQL editor. So in this page, we need to create the Next-Auth schema here. So I scroll down here and find the Next-Auth schema setup. Okay, so I click on this, and here, as you can see, this is a SQL schema creation script that creates a user table and also a session table, okay, an accounts table, and also a verification tokens table. So I click on the run here to create this schema in the SupaBase database. Okay, so if I go into the databases here and in the schema section, choose the Next-Auth, you can see we have a accounts table, session table, users table, and also a verification tokens table. And as you can see now, there isn't any data in these tables. So let's go back to our VS Code and run our application here and open it up in our browser. Okay, and now if I click on the sign in and then click on the sign in with Google, you can see my name here, and it means I have signed in into our application. Okay, and if I go to the SupaBase dashboard and here click on the table editor, okay, and select the Next-Auth schema, and if I click on the users here, you can see now there is a user inside our user table. You can see the name of the user and also email of the user and also image of the user that we've got from the Google API. Okay, now if I click on the sessions, you can see that we have a session inside our session table. Okay, so now we can tell how many users have signed up in our application and also how many user is now signed in our application. So if I go back to our application and click on the sign out and go back to the SupaBase dashboard, and you can see the session data row is now deleted from the sessions table. So now we can see that nobody is signed in our application. Okay, so now there is a question here. How we can access to this table from our Next.js application? I'm going to show you a really simple example of how we can do that. So I go back to our VS Code, and then inside the app directory, I'm going to create a page for this purpose. So first, I'm going to create a users directory, and inside it, I'm going to create a page.tsx. Okay, then let's create a functional component here. Let's rename it to the users page. Okay, and let's turn it to an async function. Okay, and then inside it, I'm going to create a SupaBase client. So I'm going to say const SupaBase, okay, and then set it to create client function, which comes from the SupaBase / SupaBase.js. And then in this function, we need to pass two arguments, our SupaBase URL and also SupaBase service key. So I go to the Next-Auth API routes and copy them. Okay, first SupaBase URL and then SupaBase service role key. Then put a exclamation mark after them in order to assert that they will not be undefined. Okay, so let's save this. Now we can access to our SupaBase databases. So here, if we pass only these two arguments to this create function, it can access to the public schema of our SupaBase databases. So if I go back to the SupaBase dashboard, here you can see we have multiple schemas here, Next-Auth public. So the default one is public, but we want to access to the Next-Auth schema. So I go back to VS Code, and as a third argument here, I pass an object and then specify DB here. And then inside the DB object, I'm going to set the schema to the Next-Auth. So let's put a comma after the second argument. And now we're fine with that. And then after the create client function, we can retrieve our data from the Next-Auth schema. Okay, I'm going to say const an object equals to await SupaBase.from and specify the table name, for example, users, okay, and then select the fields from the users table. And if we don't pass any argument to this select function, it retrieves all the fields from the users table. But we can also pass the name of the fields here. So for example, let's say we want to retrieve the name and email from the users table. And then inside the return object, we can extract the data from it. Okay, so let's save this, and here just render the data object with JSON that stringify function. Okay, that's simple. And let's go to the app.r component, and here let's add a link for the user page in the app.r. Set its href to /users, and then set its caption to the users list. Okay, so save this and go back to our browser. here, as you can see, we have a user list here. So let's first sign in into our application. And if I click on the user list here, you can see it returns null for us. So let's go back to our VS Code again. And let's check the schema here. Okay, so it's Next_Auth. And let's go back to our VS Code. And as you can see, it already returns the name and also the email of the user that is inside our users table. So yeah, in this way, we can access to the tables of the Next-Auth schema inside the SupaBase table. And I think that's it enough for this video. And in the next video, we're going to take a look at how we can implement the row-level security authorization in SupaBase and Next-Auth. Okay, so if you like the video, please hit the like button. I really appreciate that. And if you want to watch more content like this, please subscribe to my channel. Have a nice time. Bye-bye.